Let's face it, airports can be pretty annoying, but the most annoying thing about them is probably having to take the laptop out of your backpack and put it in a separate bin while going through the security check. But, of course, they wouldn't make us do those extra moves if there wasn't a good reason for it. Laptops are dense, and X-rays can't penetrate them, so it's easy to hide something dangerous there. If the device is out and on its own in a separate bin, it's easier for the scanners to capture something dangerous. Most airplanes are white. Is there a benefit to choosing this exact color? No, white paint doesn't make a place feel lighter. Neither does it save money on painting. Here are the actual reasons for the choice: safety, efficiency, and comfort. The first airplanes had a metallic color, but the problem with metal is that it's prone to corrosion, so painting it is a great way to protect an airplane from corrosion. White is favored for several reasons. First, planes fly high above the clouds and are exposed to sunlight a lot. White is the color that absorbs the least heat, and white planes get heated less. Also, sunlight makes the paint fade away. A colorful airplane will have its paint fade very fast and will require repainting. And repainting is costly, so painting aircraft white is a more lasting choice. Also, any damage is more easily noticed on a white surface. So that's one more point for the white color. We always board from the left side of the plane, every single time, no exceptions. For some reason, the right side just doesn't seem to be an option. Yes, that's done on purpose. First, the captain usually sits on the left. This way, it's easier for the pilot to align the plane with the terminal jet bridge. Also, aircraft are fueled and loaded with baggage on the right side. Since people board the plane from the left, the crew can do their job undisturbed, and there's no danger to passengers. Consistency with the choice of a side helps to make everything work more effectively. Since everyone always enters from the left, all jet bridges are designed to get attached to the left side of the airplane. If every airplane had the freedom to choose the side, it would create an additional mess for the logistics behind the process. There are more questions popping up, like what does this black triangle drawn above one of the windows mean? Apparently, it marks the seat from which the view of the airplane's wing is the best. It's needed for the crew to find the spot as fast as possible if, in case of an emergency, they need to inspect the engines, slats, or flaps. This mark saves a lot of time. Next, the rows aren't well aligned with the windows. This is business. Originally, all planes are designed with rows and windows lining up perfectly. But when an airline buys a jet, they add some additional seats, squeezing them closer together. This way, they have more seats, which means more passengers, so they can sell more tickets. But you get less space for your legs and might miss out on a window. Also, all windows have rounded corners, and this is done for safety reasons. There used to be planes with squared windows, but those caused crashes because such windows couldn't withstand high-altitude pressures. At high altitudes, external atmospheric pressure is lower than the pressure inside the cabin. So, there's a big difference in pressure inside and outside the airplane, and this creates stress. Without windows, this stress flows smoothly through the material. A squared window becomes an obstacle, and the flow of stress needs to change direction. The pressure builds up in the corners, leading to cracks. As a result, such windows break. Oval windows allow the stress to flow more smoothly without disrupting them too much and preventing stress concentration. So, oval windows are safer. The glass used in production is stretched acrylic glass, and there are 3 separate panes of it. This is done as a security measure in case there is a breach. This way, at least one pane will remain intact at all times. Have you ever noticed those small holes in the windows? The tiny hole is actually only in the pane that's in the middle. Its task is to regulate the huge pressure difference inside and outside the cabin. This way, the outer pane can handle the load. If the outer pane breaks, the middle one, even though there's a hole in it, will be able to keep the window intact. Also, that hole prevents the windows from fogging up. Now, let's say you want to relax and watch a movie. Luckily, there's a pair of headphones. But they're weird. They have a 2-pronged plug. No, this is not some kind of advanced technology. This is a witty move to prevent theft. If you can't use them anywhere else but on the airplane, no one will have the urge to snatch them away. Outside the airplane, they're basically useless. And then they bring food. There are people who love airplane food and people who aren't very fond of it. But most will agree that food does taste different in the air. Turns out, it's actually a thing. Low air pressure, lack of humidity, and background noise that we have at high altitudes change the functioning of our taste buds. They become less sensitive to sweet and salty foods, so airlines have to use more seasoning. Have you ever wondered what would happen if someone opened an airplane door accidentally? This wouldn't end well. It would be very dangerous to say the least. More specifically, soon there would be a lack of oxygen in the cabin. But gladly, no one can open that door accidentally. The pressure difference between inside and outside makes it almost impossible. It would take some immense strength to open it. The doors are designed to open on their own in case of an emergency. Speaking of safety, during takeoff and landing, the crew dims the light in the cabin. This is done for a good reason. This way, in case of emergency, you will see everything more clearly. Your eyes will get used to the darkness, and you'll have an easier time evacuating. Now, about pilots. They always wear those cool sunglasses, but the purpose is not to look cooler. They're used to protect the eyes. Throughout their career, pilots have to take care of their vision, but the problem is that it's not an easy task when you're a pilot. The damaging solar radiation that our sun emits is filtered out by the Earth's atmosphere, so the sunlight isn't very damaging to you if you spend most of your time on the ground. But it's different up in the sky. There's less air there, and the brightness is way higher. And with every 1,000 feet of elevation, the solar radiation is around 5% stronger. On average, aircraft fly at an altitude of 35,000 feet. This means that the amount of UV radiation is 175% greater than on the ground. This is very damaging to any person's vision. The large amount of time pilots spend in the air makes them vulnerable to different eye problems. And having eye problems can cost a pilot their career. So, wearing sunglasses is a crucial thing for them, and these sunglasses must be of the best quality. They should minimize the impact of sunlight and withstand UV rays, providing 100% protection for the eyes. Also, they can't be polarized, since polarization can mess with the perception of the cockpit displays. They should provide the best clarity, decrease eye fatigue, and minimize color deformation, so that pilots can see just like they would without their sunglasses on.
Now, flight attendants are trained to notice some pretty important things about each passenger once they board the plane. Curious about what these are? Well, first and foremost, flight attendants are all about safety. So if you're following the rules and paying attention during the safety demo, you're already off to a great start in their book. But don't worry, they're not just looking for rule followers. They also want to make sure you're comfortable and have everything you need to enjoy your flight. One thing they notice right away is how much luggage you're carrying. If you're struggling to lift a heavy bag into the overhead bin, they'll probably step in and help you out. And if you're one of those people who insists on bringing a massive carry-on that barely fits in the bin, they might discreetly check to make sure you're not breaking any weight or size limits. Speaking of luggage, flight attendants can tell a lot about you from your suitcase. If it's covered in stickers from exotic locations, they might assume you're a seasoned traveler who knows their way around an airport. But if it's a beat-up old bag with duct tape holding it together, they might wonder if you're a first-time flyer or just someone who doesn't care much about appearances. Of course, one of the most important things flight attendants notice about you is how you treat them and your fellow passengers. If you're friendly, polite, and respectful, they'll go out of their way to make your flight as pleasant as possible. But if you're rude, demanding, and throw a tantrum when things don't go your way, they might not be as eager to help you out. And then some. They'll always take a sneak peek at what's on your feet, too. It's not because they're all secretly obsessed with shoes, it's actually for your safety. They check out your sneakers to see if you can quickly and easily run in case of an emergency. If you're planning to board a flight, you might want to think twice before rocking those high heels, unless you want to hear an emergency command to kick them off. Speaking of emergencies, flight attendants also like to look at whether you're a fit person or not. They do this just in case they need some physical assistance in the event of some bad, unwanted thing happening. And hey, if you happen to be a doctor, don't be shy about letting the crew know. You might just be a lifesaver. Now, let's talk about food and drinks, my favorite topic. Flight attendants are always happy to serve you, but they also notice what you order. If you ask for something that's not on the menu or request a complicated custom drink, they might raise an eyebrow. But if you order something simple and easy to prepare, like a glass of water or a bag of pretzels, they'll be more than happy to oblige. If you're planning to fly with your furry friend, make sure to prepare it for some attention from the flight attendants. Don't worry, they're just curious about your cute companion. And if your pet is a trained service animal and registered with the airline beforehand, they're good to go. Also, if you've paid for your pet to fly, make sure they stay cozy in their carrier for the entire trip. Flight attendants are also trained to notice any unusual behavior or potential red flags. If someone seems nervous or anxious, they'll keep an eye on them to make sure they're okay. Luckily, some flight attendants are also happy to share some secrets that will make your next experience in an airplane way better. For instance, if you're wondering when's the best time to take to the skies, they may have some ideas. Some destinations, for example, have plenty of flights throughout the day. So the question is, should you go early or stay up late? Turns out that the best time is first thing in the morning. But shh, don't tell anyone, or they might steal all the morning flights. The reasoning is pretty sound, though. The weather is usually calmer in the morning, and any delays from the day before should have been sorted out overnight. Now, when it comes to holiday travel, here's another piece of advice. If you can swing it, give yourself a little wiggle room. For example, try flying on the day before the winter holiday starts, instead of the 24th itself. That way, you'll have a bit more flexibility and hopefully avoid any stress or last-minute airport drama. What can you do when it comes to delays, you might wonder? Well, they can happen at any time, unfortunately, and there's not much a flight attendant can do about it. But don't worry, flight attendants and passengers are on the same team. Also, don't believe the rumors. Flight attendants won't hide information from you. There's no point. If you're stuck on a delayed flight, don't hesitate to ask the staff for all the info you need, and rest assured they will do their best to get you on the next available flight as soon as possible. Now, what about jet lag? Surely flight attendants have the best remedies. If you're hopping across time zones, most flight attendants recommend catching a quick snooze upon arrival. But don't get too cozy. Stay up until nightfall to help your body clock adjust. After all, you don't want to be groggy when you arrive. Also, if you're only visiting a destination for a short time, airplane staff recommend sticking to your home time zone. It might just save you from the hustle of adjusting to another time zone unnecessarily. And don't forget to keep hydrated, munch on nutritious food, and get in some exercise to keep your body feeling tip-top. Now, we've all seen in movies those scenes where the main character gets a surprise upgrade to business class out of the blue. As much as we all dream of being upgraded to a luxurious seat mid-flight, it's usually only possible on the ground, unless you're one lucky duck. There's a list and a method for who gets bumped up to first class. Sometimes, flight attendants will shuffle passengers around so families can sit together, or they do it to fix any seat mix-up. But once the plane takes off, moving around is pretty rare. Ever wondered if you can switch seats with another passenger during the flight? The answer is yes, you can. Most flight attendants encourage it, especially if it means keeping families together. However, it's best to figure out any seat-swapping arrangements before boarding to avoid any chaos. Plus, some seats are fancier than others, and if people have paid extra for them, it's important to be respectful of that. Also, did you know that the emergency exit rows are sometimes marketed as premium seating? Let's talk about some serious airplane etiquette. So, who gets to claim the middle armrest? It's a big debate, but most flight attendants think the person in the middle seat deserves it. Hey, let's give them a break. They're already stuck in the least desirable spot. Now, on to the great window blind debate. Some people want them up. Some people want them down. If it's a nighttime flight, keep them closed. You don't want to disturb your fellow passengers with unnecessary light. However, if you're flying over the Himalayas, you better believe people are going to peek through those windows. And let's not forget, blinds need to be open upon arrival for safety reasons. The crew needs to see outside in case of emergencies. Have you ever been curious about what flight attendants eat on board? Do they have the same food as the passengers? Turns out, they can have the same meals if they want to, but they don't always choose to. Some prefer to pack their own snacks like hummus, apples, and popcorn because the airplane options don't always keep them alert. They also focus on drinking lots of water and avoiding foods that might make them feel bloated, but they do indulge in airplane coffee. Some crew members even bring their own meals on board due to dietary requirements or to add to the festive vibe on holiday flights. I once saw a passenger give a tin of holiday cookies to the flight attendants. You can bet she got some extra special attention.
Who doesn't want to cut down on flight tickets when they're planning a trip? Here are some useful tips on how to get the best deals. Some cities like London and New York have more than one airport, so consider flying through alternate airports. Some of these airports are too far away from the city center. That's why tickets will be cheaper on the flights that land there. I tried this one myself. Well, I landed at a place that looked like a cargo airport, but hey, there was a bus from there to the city center. Pros, the ticket was cheap. Cons, I spent an extra hour on the road to get to the center. What's the prime day to book a ticket? That's a heated debate. Apparently, Tuesdays are better for booking a flight. More specifically, ticket fees at around 1:30 p.m. can be the cheapest. So, if you have plans to buy tickets for your dream vacation, go for a hunt on this specific day and time. There are great websites where you can compare flights and catch the cheapest ones, and I'll get to them soon. But don't ignore the official airline websites. Many of them announce private sales for those loyal customers who directly visit their pages. If your agenda allows you to play with your departure time, do that. Traveling on an early-hour flight generally equals paying less for tickets. To catch a 6 a.m. flight, you have to get up when most of the people in the city are still enjoying their comfy beds. In the early hours, you might have problems with how to get to the airport. Not all public transport works 24 hours. Another problem would be your cat accidentally turning off your alarm. This is why these flights generally come cheaper. The same principle applies to late-night flights too. People generally don't want to fly after midnight, so prices drop accordingly. Look at the bright side. You have more time to wander around once you get to your destination. Flying with a connection is another way. It's a fairly cheap option, especially on longer haul flights. This method has a downside. Your plans can be changed with one word: delay. You might have to say goodbye to your connecting flight. Another thing you can do with connecting flights is to search for flights from the same country. Tourist destinations, megacities, and capitals are generally more expensive. Travel to a smaller city and then depart to your destination. Many of us love cookies, but probably not the ones in our browsers. Staying incognito in the flight searching process will help you get cheaper flights. How? Ticket prices depend on demand, so companies use the data on how many people search for which tickets. Let's say you look for tickets to London and regularly check the airline website to get a good deal. Your data signals that you have shown an interest in particular dates and a location. That's how you see that same flight suddenly gets more expensive. The airline knows that you're likely going to buy it. This can happen even if you refresh your browser. Either stay unidentified or clear your cookies to take yourself out of this situation. Remember I recommended that you visit the airline websites directly? You can also sign up for alerts on price drops. If you think notifications are annoying, even though they are useful, you can follow airlines on socials. Many companies use their social media accounts effectively, and they sometimes give customers some last-minute deals. In some cases, it's convenient to book tickets over the phone. For example, if you're in a group. Be aware, though, that some airlines add extra fees for completing a booking via a call. It can be as much as $50. You could get a day trip on your vacation with that money instead of spending it on words. If you must complete a booking by call, simply ask the person if they're going to charge you some additional fees for calling. While searching for a ticket, you can pretend you're in a different location. The best option is to change your location to the country you'll visit or the airline's home country. Let's say you'll go to Japan. Booking from the airline's website and changing your location via VPN would be the key to seeing lower prices. I said that I'd get to the flight comparison sites topic, and here I am. These websites are gems for giving you the best fares from several airlines and options. They recommend alternative routes that you haven't considered. Yet again, before clicking the confirm button, take a few seconds to check the airline's website. Booking directly and cutting out the middleman's fee can be a wiser option. The other potential benefit is reliable customer service. With some airlines, booking via a third party will turn this process into a tangled headphone cable like there's no tomorrow. I'll share a strategy for getting an entire row for yourselves. Imagine you're traveling with your BFF. One of you should book the window seat and the other one book the aisle seat. Other passengers will likely go for other seats and avoid the middle seat. This method cannot always work, though. If the plane is fully occupied, there'll be some unlucky person in between you. If someone books that middle seat, you can always offer them the aisle or window seat and continue to sit with your BFF. The second option is booking seats in the 13th row. Well, 13 doesn't have a good reputation, as it is superstitiously considered unlucky. Chances are, no one else books a seat from this particular number. This one is a gift to you for all your efforts to get the best possible deal. Good job you're in the airport. You're watching your favorite show while waiting for the gate to open. Boom! An hour of free airport Wi-Fi is over. Here's a loophole to double it. Roll back the time on your device. When you change the time zone back an hour, the system won't understand it and it'll allow you to use it for another hour. My 14th point is about safety. Did you know that you shouldn't swap seats before the plane takes off without letting the flight attendant know? This rule applies to changing your seat with a person from a different row, not to the person next to you. This can cause the plane to make an emergency landing. The reason is related to weight and how it's distributed. Every plane has a takeoff weight limit. This number comprises things like fuel, luggage, and passengers. Flight attendants look out for the potential weight distribution. A pilot explains it like this. If you move some seats without asking them, you might cause an imbalance on the plane. If you ask the flight attendants if you want to change seats, they'll let you do it after takeoff. I mean, people get up and move in the plane all the time, so this isn't like you can't change your position at all, but it can be dangerous to do so without confirmation. Here's a fun fact. The black box, as its nickname, is not black. It's bright orange. Flight Data Recorder is its official name, and it's orange so that in case of an accident, the rescue team can spot it easily. Where do you think is the dirtiest place on the aircraft? Not toilets, not seat holders, it's table trays. There are more. The cozy blankets you ask for from the flight attendants aren't so clean either. According to a report, some airlines wash their blankets only once a month. Now that you know the tricks, you can plan your trip at a perfect price and maybe bring your own blanket to the plane. Sit back and enjoy the flight. Good things come to those who wait. Two flight attendants stood in the galley, smiling at each other as the plane prepared for takeoff. Usually, it would be a hectic time, ushering passengers in and settling them. Yet, this is a time for fun. Their flight is a ghost flight, devoid of passengers. If you ever wondered what the crew gets up to on empty flights, you're about to find out. They took a serving tray each, but had no intention of preparing food and headed into two separate aisles. It's aisle surfing time. The engines fired up as the plane rolls from the terminal to the beginning of its designated runway. The attendants place the trays on the floor and stand on them. They held on to the seats and awaited takeoff. They're laughing as the plane quickly accelerates. In no time, it's hurtling down the runway. As it rises into the air, the interior tilts. They let go of the seats, and as the acceleration continued, so did they, straight down the aisle. The first person crashes out on row 8, while the second continues until the end. A new personal best. Victory is sweet. While it does sound over the top, according to a safety trainer on the travel forum of Quora, aisle surfing is a real thing. The faint of heart could take the softer option to sit on the tray as it slides downwards. The imagination fires as to what else they may get up to. Laps around the interior, cartwheels down the aisles, skipping. They have a closed-air cinema with their colleagues, air discos or karaoke on board of the plane. If you're a flight attendant and your crew wants to party, choose a song on the seat screen and take the announcement mic. Your colleagues are waiting. There are no passengers around to watch your dancing. You can do anything. The sky is the limit. A crew member made a viral video while singing in the aisle of an empty plane. Millions have watched the quirky video. It's a shame there were no passengers. It would have been excellent entertainment. Some have even said they ate food designated for passengers. However, anyone admitting to such conduct or being caught would see them face immediate dismissal, even with a new surfing record. You may be wondering why there would be a ghost flight in the first place. There are many reasons. In Europe, airlines must fulfill their obligations and continue the flight even if no passengers are on board. Similar legislation exists in America. There are time slots that allow for takeoff and landing. The European Commission has a use it or lose it rule. If airlines don't comply at least 80% of the time, they risk losing their slots to the competition. Aircraft also can't be left at the airport overnight, as you might with a car. Sometimes they need to be prepared for storage and returned to a particular location. In some situations, airlines continued flights and used passenger jets to transport freight instead. This type of proactive thinking has saved the financial lives of some companies. When you hear the term ghost flights, you may be thinking something a little spookier, like in a horror movie. And you'd be right, there have been actual documented ghost flights. In 1943, a flight on a combat mission disappeared following a raid on Naples. In Libya, the wreck was discovered, but not until 15 years later. None of the crew was found. The following year, a second expedition to the site found water fresh enough to drink, coffee that still had flavor, and radios and machine guns in working order. The public became fascinated. It was a ghost flight mystery. For most flight attendants, their everyday experiences aboard an empty plane aren't particularly spooky or as much fun as our aisle surfers. They're far too busy for all of that. Your typical plane will land, and the passengers depart, leaving behind quite a mess. Not everyone is as tidy as you and I. At this point, the cleaners race on board, vacuuming floors, picking up rubbish, and wiping down all surfaces so that the new passengers have an excellent clean environment. The cleaners must work fast. They have a deadline. The plane must be ready to take off again in under 80 minutes, sometimes a lot less, depending on the aircraft. This time is called turnaround. The more extended the plane sits on the tarmac, the less money the airline makes. They want to make the turnaround to be as short as possible. Time is money after all. While the plane is being cleaned, the ground crew are refueling. Many thousands of gallons are required, depending on the aircraft's size, weight, and length of the necessary journey. Without waiting for the cleaning crew to finish, the catering crew entered the plane. They often have to step around each other as meals are stored in the galley. The allocated meals must at least match the number of passengers on the imminent flight. Like fixing a torn seat, any minor repairs have to wait until a more extended stopover. As the organized chaos continues, the baggage holds are emptied by ground staff, while the new baggage arrives. Some of the more complex handlings can be moving the luggage to the carousels. There isn't much room, and sometimes the handler will have to crouch down low to get the job done. A lot of strength and skill is required, and the clock is ticking. The attendants are busy too. They must ensure that the catering crew has filed the upcoming meals and drinks in their proper places. They check off their inventory and prepare for the incoming passengers. They exercise their face muscles. Soon, they'll be wearing that smile non-stop and saying, "Good day," 200 times in a row. While they're always friendly, they have to deal with all sorts of behaviors, which can test the patience of even the sturdiest of attendants. Based on a list of 17 behaviors observed through the years, a flight attendant would give the following recommendations to the passengers. The flight attendants at the boarding door say hello to every passenger. Sometimes over 200 times in a row. Would you please say hello back? They're happy to help and recommend passengers push the buzzer only when necessary. The attendants collect trash during specific times, wear gloves, and prefer not to race back and forth. There's something that bothers most people when passengers take off their shoes. Please make sure to have a fresh pair of socks. If you sit in the exit row, please don't put any luggage under the seat in front of you, because it can block the way of the flight attendants. For example, if they need to use rubber slides urgently. Everybody knows about the rule to turn off the mobile phone, but not everybody knows why it's so important. Let's suppose all the passengers turn on their phones. In that case, the high-frequency electromagnetic fields of the mobile phones can disturb the plane's navigation system and cause false indications. There is a risk the pilot can make a wrong decision about the landing, especially if it's in terrible weather. The crew recommends keeping the seatbelt fastened during the whole flight, even if the sign is turned off, because heavy turbulence can occur unexpectedly, and the plane can be put 900 feet lower. You can loosen up your belt to feel comfortable, so the flight attendants will be happy you're safe. Passengers get into a confined space on board an airplane and may unconsciously begin an instinctive struggle for a place under the sun. Please keep in mind that this is a temporary condition. Treat each other with respect, and keep your seat back straight while the food is served, or when your neighbor gets to the seat. Passengers sometimes leave their headphones on while conversing with a flight attendant. The attendants may ask the passenger if they want refreshment, and they might get a blank stare in return. Would you mind taking off your headphones? Something that happens on every flight is when the plane is about to take off and someone decides that they want to go to the bathroom. It's all about good timing. Preferably not when the plane is hurtling down the runway at full speed. Please wait till the takeoff is over because it may be dangerous. While their job can be tiring, fortunately for us, flight attendants are patient, kind, and friendly people. They push on regardless of how tired they may be. International flights in particular can be long, taxing affairs. So, who could blame them if they find themselves on a ghost flight and decide to let their hair down, aisle surfing a bit with pleasurable distraction? And what would you get up to if you happen to find yourself on an empty flight?
Uh-oh, your airliner is filling up with people, so you hurry, looking for your comfy window seat and hoping to meet some pleasant neighbors, because a 6-hour-long flight to Hawaii with the ability to place your arms and legs as you want is an excellent start to your vacation. You relax into your window seat, already thinking of sunbathing on the beach once you reach your destination. You greet your first neighbor, who takes the aisle seat. You see the flight attendants are about to close the doors. You breathe out and stretch your legs. No more neighbors. Suddenly, the last passenger runs up to your row. It's as if he appeared out of nowhere. He tells you that you have taken his seat. You can't believe it. The flight attendant comes and asks you to vacate his seat. But why? You reserved online the window seat. You have no time to argue as the plane is taking off. So, you move to the middle seat. The guy puts his elbows on the armrests. Your aisle seat neighbor has already occupied the other armrest and put on his earphones. Huh? Seems like you are left without any space for your elbows. Let the silent telepathic fight for the armrests begin. You already know all kinds of middle seat neighbors as you fly frequently. Which one are you? The passenger who occupies both armrests is what we call universal, because he thinks he is the center of the universe, and the window and aisle seat passengers have to stay in their respective corners. He might narrow down the communication to elbow fights. Here, we recommend marking your armrest territory with words, no matter how awkward it might seem. But this doesn't sound like you. The switching passenger is the one who sometimes uses the left-hand armrest and then switches to the right. It's usually peaceful coexistence. Here, the communication remains friendly, with you exchanging smiles as you touch each other by accident. That's already closer to you, but not completely. There's also that shy passenger that uses neither the right nor the left side of the seat. He usually sits straight and awaits his arrival at the destination. He is afraid of any elbow contact with his neighbors, but he doesn't look like you either. The cooperative passenger constantly uses the front half of the armrest and shares the other part with a neighbor. So you know there's a spot for your elbow and your neighbors know theirs, and zero unnecessary contact is guaranteed. Aha! It sounds like you. Now, you place your elbows on both armrests, by moving the arms of your neighbors, smiling and indicating that they need to share the joint space. Now we will reveal the secret about how you got the middle seat. Your airline had to change the plane at the last minute, and an entirely different seating plan put you into the middle seat. It turns out the flight editor could not keep your window seat anymore, as re-editing the seating plan within a short time is tough. Transporting everybody on board the new aircraft is like working on a puzzle. Another secret when they can assign a middle seat to you is if you get to the airport at the very last moment. If you've made no seat reservation and haven't checked in online, you're more likely to get a middle seat in the row next to the restroom. Or you'll be seated behind the wing and rewarded with extra noise from the engines. But you also have excellent chances to get a surprising upgrade or some extra space seated in the exit row or bulkhead seats. Algorithms drive our world these days, as you know. The secret here is that you need to use the same airline frequently. Then you will accumulate as many flight segments or miles as possible to become a status club member with pleasant privileges. And you will then be called the Gold One. Now, whenever you buy a ticket, your frequent flyer number will activate an algorithm in the reservation system. You'll be able to reserve an extra space seat online and get access to airport lounges. And even when the flight is not fully booked, the computer system will automatically block the middle seat next to yours. And you can enjoy spreading your arms and having no contact with a stranger during the whole flight. It can also come in handy to know how to get an upgrade at the last moment. Airlines regularly oversell seats on flights to maximize revenue and increase load factors. That's why they constantly analyze the number of no-show passengers for a certain time and date using a special software. It costs only $50 to $100 to an airline to upgrade an economy passenger to an empty seat in business or first class. That's why free airline upgrades can often happen. But for you, it's essential, especially if you're on a long flight. You will get your premium experience according to your priority status. It means that if you're on the gold list, you'll be of the highest priority ranking. Then the computer program will show the gate agent that your economy seat is no longer valid. The gate agent will change your seat number from 6A to 1A, and it means you can look forward to getting top service. And you will be the lucky one who gets a fancy drink, filet mignon, and a cozy seat on the more luxurious side of the cabin divider. Now, here's another secret. If you fly solo, you will have upgrades more often given to you rather than groups. If you order a special meal in advance, you will not get a free upgrade, as your meal cannot be upgraded with you. An airline controls the meal numbers and will not serve a special economy meal in business class. But you may as well get the upgrade if you are not a member of the Gold Club. Here's another algorithm that can help you get upgraded already at the check-in. A long-haul aircraft has, let's say, a total of 354 seats. We have 8 first-class seats, 42 business-class seats, and 304 economy-class seats. Now, let's assume there are 4 first-class passengers, 20 business-class passengers, and 330 economy-class passengers. The economy class is oversold by 26 people. Now, who will be the lucky 26 passengers to sit in the front, and when will it be decided? The airline supervisor instructs check-in agents to take notes of the arriving passengers, and they will silently put some of them into the SFU list. It means suitable for an upgrade. You will not notice your probable upgrade at that moment. At first, the check-in person will give you a standard economy class boarding pass with a seat number printed on it. It all begins 1 hour before the departure at the gate. That's when the check-in counter closes, and now the staff knows the final figures. Let's assume all 354 passengers appear on time. The last 26 economy passengers get their boarding passes without seat numbers, and the supervisor finalizes the passenger list. The first lucky 4 business class passengers with an upgrade can move to the first class, and 22 people from the economy class get upgraded to the business class. Now there's enough space in the economy class. New boarding passes get printed, and the gate supervisor announces the names of those who got lucky. That's why it's good to board late, because upgrades are still being processed up to the very last minute. By the way, check-in agents not only take your bag and give your boarding pass, They're also responsible for your admission to your destination on international flights. While talking to you at the counter, the agent gets a computer answer, an OK or a N-OK to board. Thanks to the pre-checks at the departure airport, the international arrivals border control goes much faster as some work was already done at the departure point. And you usually appreciate it because, this way, you can leave the airport quickly after a several-hour flight. The check-in agent also ensures that passengers do not carry excess hand baggage. While boarding the plane, you're welcomed by a friendly smile and hello from one or two flight attendants. You might not know it, but at this moment, the chief cabin attendant is secretly checking you whether you are fit to fly or not. They pay particular attention to possibly aggressive passengers, those that might get removed before the flight. While you're taking your seat on board the plane, flight attendants are spread throughout the cabin. They welcome you and check that you don't stow any hand luggage at the exit or bulkhead row. During the meal service, flight attendants control what you drink and ensure you do not exceed a certain amount. Be careful, flight attendants are watching you, but only to keep you safe. You arrive at the airport anticipating a pleasant flight. After all, you've paid more for that extra legroom, or a comfy window seat, or a business class. That's when you find out you've been downgraded. How come? And if you can get downgraded, is the opposite possible too? Then what other secrets do airlines hide? Experts claim downgrades do happen, and rather frequently at that. The reasons vary. The airplane can get unexpectedly swapped for a smaller one because of some technical issues. Or a passenger can miss their connection because of a flight delay. The next flight can be a different airplane model, or the seats in the needed class might be already booked. The flight can be overbooked. In this case, if you arrive at the check-in later than other passengers, the place you've booked can already be given away. There have also been cases where people bought first-class tickets only to find out later there was no first class on the plane whatsoever. Oops. But then, how about getting a better seat? Your chances to have an upgrade are higher if you travel at quiet times, for example during bank holidays when business travelers don't fly that often. Join an airline's loyalty program and try to book your flights only with this carrier. Come early for your flight. If there are spare seats in a higher class, you may get them for free. First come, first served. But the rules of downgrading and upgrading aren't the only secrets airlines, flight attendants, and airport staff don't want you to know. If your flight is canceled, get in line at the airline's ticket counter as soon as possible. But while you're waiting, call their customer service. It's usually faster than talking to a gate agent, and in your case, seconds matter. Airport lounges can be available for regular travelers. In most of them, you can pay a certain amount of money and rest in a quiet place with free food and drinks. You can't stay trapped on a plane without going anywhere for more than 3 hours. Any longer than that, and you can ask for compensation. Crew members have a special name for passengers who turn up late and without an assigned seat. It's spinners. Such passengers keep flapping around trying to find an unoccupied place or figure out which overhead bin has a bit of space for their bag. If you need to find a bathroom, the cheapest cafe, or your gate at the airport, don't ask pilots. They're usually just as clueless as you are, unless it's their base airport. Planes must be at least 85% full to bring profit. That's why many flights are overbooked, in case some passengers don't show or miss their connection. If you get bumped unwillingly and are delayed for 2 or more hours, you're entitled to compensation. If you have a choice, pick cash or a check. Vouchers tend to have expiration and blackout dates. Flight attendants dislike delays as much as you do. They're only paid for flight hours, not for the time spent on the ground. Air companies offer cabin crews a small expense allowance for every hour they spend at the airport, but that's pretty much it. Buying group tickets is likely to cost you more than getting several single ones. Let's say you need 5 tickets, but there are only 3 discounted ones left. Instead of snatching 3 cheaper ones and buying 2 at full price, you'd have to pay for 5 regular price tickets. For domestic flights, the cheapest days to fly are Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. If it's an international flight, opt for weekdays. Plus, wait for a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday to buy tickets at the lowest price. Despite what you might have seen in action movies, an ordinary person will never manage to land a commercial airplane. Contrary to popular belief, there's no cargo compartment underneath the plane, no extra layers filled with suitcases, bags, and pet carriers. Even if there are some accessible alcoves under the cockpit or cabin, they're too tiny for a person to move without having to crouch. Airplanes only get cleaned once a month or every 6 weeks. But when this time comes, an aircraft is usually taken to the hangar, and the whole cleaning process lasts for more than 8 hours. Each of those dings you hear during the flight has its own meaning. For example, a high-low sound informs flight attendants their colleagues need them in another part of the cabin. 3 low dings mean serious turbulence ahead. Duty-free stores aren't always cheaper than retail ones. What's more, goods are sometimes delivered to duty-free from regular city stores. So do not alarm passengers. Pilots and cabin crew often replace the word turbulence with a more neutral air pocket. Flight attendants assess you when you're boarding the plane. If you look strong enough and are wearing comfortable clothes, they'll remember it to ask you for help in case of an emergency. Don't worry if you notice airplane wings flex. They're designed to be flexible. If they were stiff, they would break as soon as the airplane came across the slightest turbulence. You may have an opportunity to check your carry-on bag at the gate, and totally for free. Listen for messages offering complimentary checked bags. It happens when the airline expects a full flight and there's a shortage of overhead bin space. Be careful with what you buy in duty-free if you have a connecting flight. Some airports won't allow you to carry liquids over 3.4 ounces through your layover destination, even if they're from a duty-free store and in a sealed bag. You can ask for an extra portion if you still feel hungry after the meal on the plane. If you're nice and polite and the food is available, you'll get it. Most airlines get rid of the leftovers after the flight anyway. Planes never fly in straight lines. All routes have to pass not far from airports so that pilots have enough time to reach one if there's a forced landing. Weather conditions can also affect the trajectory. Airport taxis can charge you twice the actual price of the ride. It's always better to use an online taxi app or rent a car. If you don't have these options, make sure to find out the rate in advance. Airplane headphones are reusable, even though the bag you get is sealed. Foam covers get changed, and earphones are handed out to the next plane load of passengers. What surprises flight attendants most is passengers getting off the plane and leaving some or all of their stuff behind. You'll feel safer and happier in an airplane with a wider entrance and brighter lighting. You might even believe your food tastes better and your seat is wider. When a security agent is having a pleasant conversation with you, they might be checking your behavior right at that moment. They know how to make sure you aren't planning anything suspicious. When pilots fly as passengers, they ignore turbulence but pay attention to unusual smells. They know which scents can indicate problems with the engine or fuel storage systems. You can find free water at most airports. Just remember to bring along an empty plastic bottle. The chances are you'll see either a water refill station or at least a water fountain. The dirtiest places on any plane are the seatbelts, headrests, tray tables, and seat pockets. If your captain announces they're finishing some paperwork, it means they're busy revising the flight itinerary or waiting for the ground staff to prepare the flight logbook. That's a journal that contains the official record of a journey. you'll be the first to grab your suitcase at the baggage carousel if you check it later than other passengers. Bags that are loaded the last are typically the first to get to the baggage claim area. Some planes, especially those flying long distances, have secret bedrooms for crew members who need to catch some shut-eye. These bedrooms, called crew rest compartments, are located either at the back of the plane or behind the cockpit. Such a compartment can have up to 10 beds where flight attendants can have rest. So, it's pouring outside when you get on a plane. If you were in a car, you'd simply switch on the windshield wipers and the headlights after turning the key in the ignition. Do pilots do that? Airplanes spark so many questions, and it's time for some answers. Do planes have windshield wipers? Yes, commercial planes do, but they're only used during taxiing, takeoff, and landing. Once a plane reaches its cruising altitude, pilots turn them off. The plane's speed is fast enough to clear the windshields from rain. Wipers might be absent on single-engine airplanes because the propeller airstream blows strong enough to keep the water away. What happens when a plane loses one engine in flight? Actually, it goes, "Hey, has anybody seen my engine? It was just here a second ago." No, nothing special. The plane actually just keeps flying. There are certificates for planes flying over oceans or long distances that state how long they can do it. For example, the Boeing 787 can fly for more than 5 hours without the second engine. It's enough for pilots to plan a safe landing. Well, why is it so cold on a plane? The temperature on board averages 74 degrees Fahrenheit, about the same as in most office buildings. But you feel so cold because your body doesn't move much, producing less heat to warm itself. The crew doesn't turn the heat up because hot air can cause some passengers to faint during the flight. Do airplanes have horns? Yeah, and some of them have a whole trumpet section. Actually, yes, they do have horns, but pilots don't use it to scare away birds or get other aircraft's attention in the sky. "Hey, move over, buddy!" Actually, you can hear that high-pitched chime only on the ground when the plane isn't moving. Like when an engineer checks something in the cockpit and wants to get the attention of a ground crew member. Why do planes leave white trails in the sky? It happens when the engine burns fuel. It ejects water and carbon dioxide that gets mixed with the atmosphere. And since the air is cold at high altitude and this exhaust is hot, the water condenses and may freeze, creating those white tails. Do airplanes have brakes? Yes, there are multiple disc brakes made of carbon steel material, similar to the ones in your car. But using them only isn't enough to stop the plane when it touches the ground. The braking system also includes different surfaces that slide out of the wings and disrupt the airflow. Can a plane door open mid-flight? The cabin pressure is the force that won't let that happen. If someone tried to do it, they would have to overcome more than 24,000 pounds of pressure, the weight of a ship anchor. Plus, there are lock bolts deep inside the aircraft structure that hold the door in place. What happens when lightning hits a plane? Now, statistics say this happens to every commercial plane about once a year. But the aircraft's metal parts and lightning protection systems prevent electrical buildup. So, in most cases, this leaves a plane with only a scorch mark on its surface. Why don't the seats and windows always line up? Good question. All commercial planes are designed with seats and windows perfectly aligned. But when an airline buys a jet, it often chooses to add extra seats. More seats mean more passengers and more tickets sold. And less of a view and less legroom for you. See how that works? Why do flight attendants touch the overhead compartment? You'd think that they're checking to see if it's closed tightly. But nope, they use a scalloped handrail hidden at the bottom of the overhead compartment for a steadier walk along the aisle. What are those white spiral marks on engines for? Well, since the ground staff wear hearing protection, they can't rely on their ears to decide if it's safe to approach the plane. Seeing that moving swirl on jet engines prompts them to stay away from the area. Why are there holes in airplane windows? Those windows actually have 3 panes of plexiglass. The tiny hole is in the middle one. It helps regulate the huge pressure difference inside and outside the cabin, so the outer pane can handle the load. If the outer pane happened to break, the middle one, even with a hole in it, would still be enough to keep the window intact. That hole also keeps the windows from fogging up. Why are there hooks on the wings? If there is an emergency landing on water, passengers have to step on the slippery wings to use some emergency exits. That's why crew members secure one end of a rope to the door frame and the other to the wing through the hook. Another rope is secured in the second hole, safely leading passengers along the wing to the inflatable slide. Why do the wings have different colored lights? It's for Christmas. No, that red light on the left wingtip, the green one on the right, and the white one on the tail make up the plane's navigational lights. They let other pilots know the plane's position and the direction it's moving in, toward them or away. Do planes have ignition keys? Well, since ignition keys are usually a security measure, most commercial planes don't need them. They're locked in hangars under 24/7 surveillance. To start the engine, a pilot just pushes buttons and turns switches. But smaller private planes, like a Cessna, have ignition keys to start the engine and even locks on the doors. Why are there triangles above the windows? These black and sometimes red stickers let the crew know which window is best to look out when they want to check the moving parts of the wing. If you get motion sickness during the flight, try to choose a seat between the triangles for a more comfortable trip. How can you get extra space on a plane? Well, if you're lucky enough to get an aisle seat, there's a magic button near the hinge under the armrest closest to the aisle. Press it, and the armrest will swing up to the back of your seat. Why are most planes white? Well, this color reflects the sun better than any other, so it helps keep a plane cool. It's also much easier to spot any cracks, dents, leaks, and other faults on the white surface. And paint makes a plane 1,200 pounds heavier, causing it to burn more fuel. Airlines save money by not painting them. Why don't airplanes have parachutes for passengers? Well, like paint, parachutes would also add extra weight, around 8,000 pounds. Plus, skydivers must go through at least 4 hours of training to learn how to handle a parachute. Lastly, jumping out of a plane at 35,000 feet in the air is simply not safe, because temperatures at that altitude are colder than the Arctic, minus 65 degrees. Why can't planes fly when it's hot? Well, the molecules in hot air are much more spread out. To lift a plane, you need dense air. That's why it gets harder for a plane to take off as the temperature increases. Besides, scorching weather can overheat the internal machinery or even melt some of its parts. So, if it gets 104 degrees Fahrenheit outside, your flight might be delayed. Why do planes have round windows? The very first commercial planes had square ones, but after some time, they started flying at a higher altitude that demanded the cabin be pressurized. Frequent pressurization and depressurization deformed and even broke windows with corners. They were replaced with round ones since they withstand the pressure much better. How do the oxygen masks work? Very well, actually. If the cabin is depressurized at cruising altitude, it loses oxygen. The masks provide that, but only for 15 minutes. It's okay though. That's long enough for the pilot to descend lower than 10,000 feet, where the air has more oxygen and people can breathe normally. What causes turbulence? Your trip gets bumpy because of 3 main reasons: storms, mountains, and jet streams. Just like an ocean, air creates waves when it meets a mountain, and sometimes it has nowhere to go but up in strong currents affecting a plane. Jet streams are bands of swift winds that appear when warm air masses collide with cold ones. Storm clouds push air away, creating unpredictable waves. Why do planes sometimes dump fuel? If there's an emergency landing, pilots must quickly get rid of excess weight, since they didn't burn it, and get to the destination runway as light as they should be. The lighter the plane, the softer it'll touch the ground, so no blown tires or fire. Why are the doors on the left side? Well, the captain usually sits on that side, so aligning the plane with the terminal jet bridge is easier. They fuel the aircraft and load baggage on the right side. If passengers are coming in on the left, it doesn't disturb those crews. Why do they dim the lights during takeoff and landing? It takes your eyes up to 30 minutes to fully adjust to a dark setting. Dimming the lights at night or dusk prepares them in case passengers need to make an emergency exit. They fade the lights during the day to save some engine power. Why are most plane seats blue? This color is psychologically associated with safety and reliability, so flight-weary passengers feel less anxious. Besides, stains and dirt are less visible on blue seats. Now we know. So picture this. You're about to endure a 6-hour flight, and right now, before departure, you're sure that you're going to be bored to tears. After all, it's 6 hours of sitting still in your seat with only short bathroom breaks. Sounds tough, but how about doing that for 18 hours instead? Such flights do exist, and they're becoming increasingly popular. People nowadays prefer to get from A to B without any unnecessary stops. It's the nature of our increasingly busy world. But surprisingly, the first long-haul flight took place 20 years ago. On March 1, 2001, Continental Airlines had its first non-stop trip covering a distance of 7,332 miles. In the late morning, the aircraft left Newark, New Jersey and headed north. It traveled over the northern part of the U.S., then Canada, and flew over the North Pole. Then the plane went over Russia, Mongolia, and China, and a staggering 16 hours later, it landed in Hong Kong. People all over the world were elated by this new development since it opened so many possibilities for fast travel. A lot of business travelers have frequent trips to these two leading financial centers of the world. But before 2001, there hadn't been any non-stop commercial flights that could make such trips more convenient. Funny enough, just several days after the first flight from Newark, United Airlines started their own service to Hong Kong. But since their planes departed from JFK Airport, this airline set a new record because the distance was about 2 miles longer. Nowadays, the champion of long-haul travel is Singapore Airlines with their flight from Newark to Singapore. Just imagine, the longest commercial flight in the world lasts 18 hours and 45 minutes and covers over 9,500 miles. That's longer than the Earth is wide. I'll bet it seems like it too. Well, if long-haul flights are so frequent nowadays, why do people still search for connecting flights? Well, that's a good question, and the answer is money. Let's have a look at an ultra-long-haul flight, say from Singapore to New York. For these flights, Singapore Airlines uses an Airbus A350-900 ULR, which stands for Ultra Long Range. There are only 7 of such airplanes in the world, and they can cover a distance of 9,700 miles without making a pit stop. But not so the passengers, I'll bet. But while the standard type can carry 253 passengers on board, its ultra-long version seats only 161. You may think that's kind of weird, but the thing is, there are no economy passengers on these flights at all. Business passengers occupy 67 seats, and 94 cater to those in premium economy. You see, more passengers and more seats mean more extra weight for the aircraft, and carrying more weight leads to using more fuel, which means pit stops. See how it's all connected? Anyway, passengers in business and premium classes pay more for their tickets. So, in the end, airlines don't lose anything from operating such insanely long flights halfway around the world.